Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Align Plans. Today we are doing something that someone actually requested. I wasn't planning on doing this week, but I wanted to give you guys a quick little quarterly update on what is happening within my journals. So I have all my journal lined up right here, and I thought that we would just kind of show you like how things have been going and what I'm using, what I'm not using, what is something that is completely eliminated, and that's it. And I also changed the location because honestly I was just kind of bored with, you know, my complete setup. So we're switching it up because why not? Okay, so let me just move everything out of the way so that we can start with the one that I'm using, that I'm doing my best to kind of keep updated the most, and that is the 5-year Midori daily. This one is the limited edition one. I'm not sure if the light picks it up properly, but basically you have, I'll just show you like a blank section. So you have one page, and within one page you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, basically 5 sections or 5 years worth of information that you can put in like the 2 or 3 lines that are kind of allocated. Now here's the thing with this, because there isn't really a whole lot that you can write about in each day. I think that kind of limits how much you want to keep track of, right? And sometimes I just need like a sentence, sometimes I want to write a lot more actually. So it took me a little bit to kind of get into it, and it took me a little bit to also be in the rhythm of constantly updating it. So I have to say, sometimes I do go back and then I update like a full week's worth of entries just based on how things are going. But I'm happy to report that as of right now, we are fully updated. We are up to date as of the 13th, which is today, the day of filming. And so far it's kind of growing on me. It's definitely a practice that it takes a little bit to kind of get into it, but it's small, it's compact, and you know, I know that it's going to be so valuable after the 5 years where we can kind of look back on it. And I don't know, I think that it's just going to be like this really nice memory keeper without really having to go too much into detail of what you actually write about. If you love videos like this one, when we're talking about journals, when we're talking about stationery, when we're talking about planning, make sure that you subscribe if you haven't had a chance yet already. You can also get behind the scenes footage, and you can get like early access videos if that's what you're looking for. Just check out the offering that we have available for memberships. If it's in alignment for you, I would love to have you in the community. If not, just you being here means the absolute world to me. Next up, actually, you know what? Next up, let's talk about the Hobonichi. So I have, this is the alternative to Hobonichi Cousin. So this is the Hobonichi Hon with the hardcover. Okay, so here's how I feel about the Hobonichi Hon. And I think I mentioned this even as I was setting this up. So I have like all the monthlies ready to go. Let me see if I can zoom in. So I don't think I really did anything on the monthly side. As you can tell, like I didn't really write anything in there. There wasn't like this big need for me to constantly update the monthly. So I just usually can keep it pretty blank. And then moving into the weeklies, some of the weeks I started out pretty strong. Like I started out really well where things were like happening. There was like a theme going on, but honestly, I don't think that I really knew like how I wanted to create the layout and really what I wanted to kind of write about. So it just very much just felt like backlogging memory keeping, which is sort of where I kind of struggled with it. So, you know, and I wasn't really sure how much stickers, how much washi tape to kind of add on there. So because I didn't really have my groove, I couldn't really stick with it. At least I couldn't stick with it the way that I wanted to, the way that I envisioned it. I'm fairly consistent in January, and then moving into February, this is sort of starting to look more like the layout that I'm hoping for. This part still kind of bothers me, to be honest. So there's obviously like a lot of blank spaces. Again, this section I really like, so I spent a lot more of my time on writing more smaller detailed information. I'm not sure if you can tell. Hopefully the camera picks it up, and hopefully we're actually in focus. But there's like a lot more like subsectioning. I'm not sure why I'm so adamant on actually using that time blocker, because really it shouldn't actually matter all that much. But I think that that's just like my own mental block that I need to get over. Again, love this. This part is really working for me. That's now we're into March. And then we skip a whole bunch of time. And so this week makes me so happy. This is now starting to look a lot more like what I kind of envisioned, but with larger journaling supplies. So like I started to really utilize some of the kits that I got from, I mean, obviously this looks a lot busier than I really envisioned. So I think I can kind of clean that up a little bit more. But for the most part, this looks fairly entertaining, fairly fun for me to not only create, but to kind of maintain. And then that brings me to this week, which is a really similar style. So I'm hoping that I can kind of maintain this and really continue to stick with this on a weekly, just because I realize that if I'm breaking this down day by day, it's really not that much to update anyway. And then let's move on to the daily. So the dailies in the back have been going strong. And honestly, like that was always something that I really enjoyed. I'm not going to do like a full flip through right now. But I mean, for the most part, I think that we only have like about 4 days that we're missing. And then beyond that, like everything else is fairly filled out. And it's done, like the layouts are kind of done in a way that I actually enjoy it. So sometimes I don't actually have that much time to journal all that much or do like enough memory keeping. So sometimes I do go back in and just write a bit more, but for the most part, this is really working for me. The only thing that I was kind of thinking of as I was prepping for this video, the only thing that I would change about this maybe going into next year, or probably making the switch probably midway through this year, is if I were to switch out of this completely, then I would go in with the common planner so that we can get into the B6 size. Just because I do feel that the size would be a little bit more suitable, a little bit more advantageous, even though I really love the layouts and I love the dailies. But I would love to kind of bring back that freedom that the undated dailies gave me. As much as I do enjoy having the daily updates here, but I also love the freedom that the common planner kind of gave me when it comes to memory keeping. If I'm actually just using it as a memory keeper type of planner, if I'm not using the common planner as my main everyday planner, then I think that that would be really suitable for the purpose that this planner fills up for me, which is basically a daily journal memory keeper. So I think I like this, but I'm kind of over it. I'm over the size. I'm over having to feel this pressure of I have to have both the monthlies and the weeklies and the dailies filled out. It does become kind of cumbersome, as much as I love it when it's all filled out. But to be honest, like it does become a lot of work. And so I'm trying to be more conscious of how many actual journals do I want to keep track of, and how many of them are actually fulfilling the purpose of what I intended for them in the first place. So that's something that I really realized over time as I'm not only purchasing these journals, but just like, what's the point of it, right? Like, does it actually fulfill a purpose? Because if it doesn't, then that system no longer works for me. And then we're down to the traveler's notebook, which really I'm not even going to talk about it, because it not only makes me sad, but it just makes me feel like I currently really am not in that chapter of my life where I have this massive purpose for it. So for now, like, we're not doing anything with the traveler's notebook. I don't have it set up. I do have a couple of inserts in here, and they're fun, and when I get to it, I get to it. But I like the fact that they're all like blank, you know, and it's just, for the life of me, I just can't stick with it. At least I can't stick with it because the purpose that I'm keep giving it is not really working for me, you know. So I think that that's sort of my struggle with this, is that, like, even though if I'm adding inserts like this is super cute, and there's a really big part of me that would love to continue to stick with this, but it's just, I don't necessarily want to use the inserts as a planner. I don't know, like, I'm just so torn with how I feel about this, because I just feel like this is just work right now, and it's no longer giving me the same vibe that it did. even though I do have a lot of it filled out. But it's just, I'm not getting through these inserts as quickly as I thought I would. And it's just, I don't know, like I just feel like this is just work right now. And I don't want it to be. So for now, I'm just setting it aside, and I think I can revisit this at a later time. And then we're back onto Midori. So this is the A5 size, the Midori notebook. I think it's like the 1 a day, but it's not the 1 a day. Like it's not specific to that. It's an A5 size book. It's a blank book. It's yellow. It's kind of like this beigey yellow with like the blue dots. And then you have like the pages down here that are perforated. I have to say, when it comes to just straight up just writing, nothing fancy. There's nothing else to it. We just write. This is, like you can tell, there's very, very minimal, like sometimes there's absolutely no decoration whatsoever. Sometimes there's a little bit, but for the most part, I don't actually fill this out for the decoration. I fill this out when I have a lot to say. And for that reason, I love it. I don't fill it out all the time. This is definitely not a daily thing for me. But when I have like a lot more to write than what would be more suitable in the Hobonichi Cousin, it goes in here. And it's very much all about just like really processing mental emotions and processing like anything and everything that might be jumbled up in my head. And for that reason, I still very much enjoy it. I really love the simplicity of it. So I do think that this will very much stick around. It's definitely not about creative outlet for me. This is more about if I actually just want to write and process anything and everything that has happened to me or that I'm kind of thinking about. It's sort of like just, I kind of always imagine this book like, I think that that's one thing that's actually helping me is I always imagine that somebody's kind of just having a coffee, sitting across the couch from me, and we're just having a conversation. And that's what this book feels like to me. So I really love journals that are very simple in their setup, very simplistic, and there's really not much to it. Almost like closest is like a notebook, but like a little bit thicker. But it's just like the writing experience is great, and it's just more about just something or someone holding space for me. And that's what this feels like. So I would love to move more towards that vibe, that feeling that I get when I'm interacting with certain journals, where it's more about the simplicity of the product. It's not complicated, and there is no expectation that it needs to be overly filled out, it needs to be overly decorated, but it's more just about just to write down what's going on with you, because I'm here to listen. And so like I think that because of that, it really makes like the actual journaling process very enjoyable. So definitely staying with the lineup. And one honorable mention that I have is actually the also from Midori, is the Midori Hibino. Even though I'm using this as my daily journal, no, I'm using this as my daily planner. So if you look, it's a daily planner. Like the layout is definitely all about my daily to-do lists, but on every single page, one way or the other, intentional or unintentional, I always sort of happen to have a section of either reflections or just how I feel, or I have thoughts, or I have like an area where it's more long format writing. Definitely not really about a lot of decoration, as you can tell. Like if you know my style, you know that I don't really like to overload my pages with like a ton of stuff. But there's always some sort of a reflection. There's always some sort of a recap, or some sort of a lesson learned, or 10 interesting things. And maybe I don't get to 10, maybe I only get to 2. But nevertheless, like it just kind of becomes more about like, what do I actually want to write here? What do I want to remember about this day? So this essentially becomes sort of like a hybrid, because I get 2 pages within one day. And you know, like you have like your section here about your schedule, then you can use this 3/4 of a page for whatever you want, really. Usually I just kind of write down my running to-do list and anything and everything that I want to remember. But there's always some version of reflection here on almost all of my daily pages. So I kind of wanted to include that into the lineup, and maybe that's why. Maybe it could be because of the Hibino that I don't feel the absolute need for this, right? Maybe, I don't know. Right now, I know that I feel differently about this little book and differently about this. And obviously, like, honestly, I would love to get to a point where it's just like, this is my lineup. But I don't think that that really actually would work well for me. So for now, when it comes to journaling, this little hybrid guy is very much working for me. This guy is very much working for me. And obviously, the Hobonichis and the 5-year reflections are working for me. I do see myself switching out of this, moving forward. Maybe not in like I'm not in a rush, but at the same time, I'm aware that that's kind of what needs to happen moving forward, just so that it makes the actual journaling experience a little bit more palatable for me and a little bit easier on both writing time and like the size is just it's becoming one of those things where it's no longer really working as well for me as it used to. Now, if this was my main journal, would this be enough? Probably. But because I have these other outlets, I think that we just kind of have to be conscious of like, what is it giving me, and then what I'm actually looking to get out of all of these things moving forward. So this is basically all I have for you. I would love to hear how many journals you currently have and how your current system is working for you. Maybe you have some tips for me on what you would recommend that might work a little bit better, a little bit more optimally, given that I'm more drawn to like the more minimalistic style journals, almost like a bullet journal, but not quite. But yeah, I would love to hear your thoughts and what you guys think. Comment below, let me know. And of course, if you've enjoyed this video, you can give it a thumbs up, you can subscribe, do all the things to support the channel. It definitely makes a world of a difference, whether you realize it or not. I so appreciate you guys being here. And that's all I got. Thanks so much for watching, and I cannot wait to see you in my next one. Bye.